All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tech Talk Weekly podcast. As you can tell, I'm not Bob. Um, it is me, Autumn, again. Hooray for me. Apparently, whenever Bob doesn't want to do it, I have to do this. So I'm here. Um, and with me today, I have Michael Bryant. He is our Adult Services Coordinator with Community Engagement. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I
Oh,
appreciate that.
absolutely, absolutely. We love having our own staff on here. That especially somebody like you who gets our programs out and about to all of the libraries, not just one specific. Because you do so much for all of us. So we are
Thank,
very excited to have you here today.
thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right. So we're gonna get going here. Let me switch over to my screen. Is it gonna let me? Do I know what I'm doing? Maybe not. It's okay. All
You
right,
gotta
here
love the
we
technology
go.
sometimes. It doesn't want to play nice.
Right, right, exactly. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? So we're gonna share this screen over here and we're gonna bring it up to there we go. Hooray, I know what I'm doing. Yay for
Okay.
me.
There you go.
I'm very chill. I'm very laid back. It's fine. So, one of our first articles that we have for today is about mushrooms.
Hmm.
Okay. So, this particular article is about using mushrooms, not like what we eat, right?
Hmm.
So, it's using the mycelium, which are the little roots, for lack of, I'm like doing this like a mustache or something. It's like the little roots that grow down, that the mushrooms grow down into the ground, and using that as a construction material. So apparently, um, we have been using this sort of since like about 2007, at
Hmm.
least as far as like packaging material. Okay, so like styrofoam peanuts, that kind of thing. Um, but in 2014, the the New York Museum of Art, Modern Art, MoMA, used mycelium to create an architectural um, installation. Okay,
Hmm.
so the super cool thing is that it can be like a self healing material. Also, I didn't know this, that concrete is incredibly polluting. Like it's really bad for the environment. And let's see, 2.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide
Wow.
per year
Hmm.
come from the creation of concrete.
Hmm.
Yeah. So if we use mushrooms, right? So what are your thoughts on this, Michael?
What?
When
Well, I mean, you bring up some great points. When I was looking at the article and I was thinking about some of the things that we were going to talk about, one of the things I looked at was how construction contributes immensely to the global carbon footprint and emissions. And so, it's important for us to find low carbon alternatives to, offset that. And so it's interesting to see how we could possibly find an alternative. And so I saw how the fungi was being used in that capacity to find a more eco-friendly way to make these buildings and constructions and things of that nature. So it's very, very interesting that this is a possibility, and I think it should be explored more so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My question for us, as we know,
Mhm.
um, how do they deal with hurricanes?
I know.
So
If
obviously we have to be concerned with that kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, if it's self-healing, hey, maybe your insurance wouldn't be so high. If you can still get insurance, who knows,
Mhm. Yes.
right? So yeah, that was a really interesting. I f- I mean, obviously, as we find these new technologies and these new means, in this instance for the construction industry, what does that mean for the current jobs market that we have in our construction industry as it is? Now, I'm sure like the building and things like that, that might be a little easier, you know, because these aren't going to be, I mean, obviously if it's really high, you still need those safety precautions, but it's not going to be as heavy as concrete, which is good. But, you know, it's that transitioning into the green future as opposed to still doing things the way we did. In it's a matter of rearranging our perspective.
Yes, yes, I totally agree with that. Also, I think about the cost of making that transition, because quite often we think about the material side of it, but then also we have to consider the process of how you deliver it to the work site, how it's prepared, and all of those infrastructures have to be put in place. And so it's very intriguing to see how that will work. Also, I've thought about, as you mentioned, some of the limitations. You mentioned the hurricanes, but then most recently we had an unprecedented flood here in South Florida. So, how does it, stand up to that type of environmental factors?
Yeah. Like, are my walls going to get thicker because it's going to soak up all the
Yeah.
water? I mean, that's the wood in my house did that. So, you
Hmm.
know, I didn't get flooded too bad, but you know, it was,
Yeah. Hmm.
is this a better way? You know, who knows? It is, but as you said, it's definitely worth exploring,
Hmm.
because we only have one planet.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Hmm.
Speaking of our one planet and being in Florida,
Hmm.
let's move on to our giant blob of seaweed.
Okay.
So, anybody who lives in a coastal area, if you visit the beach or anything, knows that when this kind of stuff washes up, it stinks. It
Hmm.
smells really bad. Um, so, I know some of this is already starting to wash up. Um, but here's the interesting thing that I found in this article is there's a bunch of plastic garbage that's basically hitched a ride
Hmm.
on this enormous blob. To call it a blob is really an understatement because it says it is double the width of the US.
Wow.
How? What? That's nuts. That's nuts.
Hmm.
And so it's a blob. No, it isn't. It is a continent, is what it
Hmm.
is. That's
Hmm.
nuts. But the plastic garbage that is floating in there with it, that's bad that there's that there's the plastics floating in it, but it's also carrying bacteria because of the plastic.
Yeah. Hmm.
And this particular bacteria that comes from the Vibrio genus, who knows if I said any of that right? It's fine. Um, can cause some really bad things in
Yeah.
people.
Hmm.
I believe it is one of the flesh-eating bacterias, which is wonderful. We all love that. Um, this that in itself is interesting and scary. Um, but what's really interesting that I found is they can study it, they can see it, but they don't know if it's actually a pathogen. That you can't just look at something and go, "Oh, that's going to be deadly."
Hmm.
Maybe, maybe not. There's
Hmm.
only one way to find out. And we don't want that.
Yes.
Have you ever come in contact with some of the stuff that washes up and
I
things?
mean, I've seen some of it. It's and also I watch a lot of documentaries, and so I see it talked about in some of these documentaries. As I was going through the article,
Mhm.
I thought about how the bacteria, scientists are looking at the bacteria and talking about how damaging it is to humans, if it comes in contact with us and everything. But also think about, what is it doing to just the quality of the water? How is it impacting the fish and all the other organisms, and how that goes through the food supply chain? One organism eats another organism, and so on and so on and so on. The next thing you know, we have a plate of it on our table, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, they've particularly not necessarily just with the bacteria, but with the plastics.
Hmm.
I mean, they've pulled up fish that their stomachs are full of
Hmm.
plastics. And so, yes, the bacteria is a bad thing. It's a very bad thing, and it could be very dangerous on multiple levels. But the plastic,
Hmm.
we can't just like take some antibiotics to get rid of
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
There's no medical cure for plastics in our ocean. I
Yeah.
do know they have some things that they're working on to that like eat the plastic.
Hmm.
That it just like and it eats it up and it's gone.
Hmm.
I don't know. But yeah, it is scary in that if it if it's affecting this, it can affect the entire ecosystem.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've seen. I have a sailboat,
Hmm.
and I'm really into watching sailing things
Hmm.
on YouTube.
Okay.
And there's a few people that I follow, and there was one couple. They were sailing through the Caribbean, and they come in contact with some of this sargasso,
Hmm.
and it is just. I mean, okay, that first world problems.
Hmm.
My sailboat. I get how that sounds. I
Yeah.
understand. But it can wreak havoc on your propeller.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's not cheap to fix.
I could imagine.
Again, first world problems. Nobody's crying for me. It's fine. I mean, it hasn't affected me. We haven't taken our boat down that far. So, and especially with all of this out there, we're not going anywhere anytime soon because,
Hmm.
I don't want to smell it more than anything. I don't because it's really gross.
Well, I mean, you bring up so many great points, and I think about the plastic, and as I mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
to piggyback on what you're sharing, I think about how in some of these documentaries I've seen where we look at this intense demand for plastic products, and it is what it is. But I'm guilty of it as well. I buy these products. And I'm a, you mentioned the sailboat. I'm into electronics, right? I like my
Mhm.
cell phone. Get my new cell phone and stuff like that. And so I buy a new cell phone, and the case for my old phone won't work on a new phone. So then what do I do with it? I give it to the thrift store, or toss it in the garbage can or whatever. And it's just all of this plastic that's not being used, and it's just being thrown into the garbage and everything. And so it's such a demand for this stuff. It's just a lot of just causes such chaos.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, in the dawn of plastics,
Hmm.
in the dawn of convenience, nobody had the foresight to think, hey, and maybe they did, and everybody thought they were crazy, but to think, hey, maybe this isn't the best in the
Hmm.
world. Maybe there's another way. And then you see grocery stores, right, with the plastic
Hmm.
bags. And then they're like, you can't use paper, that's deforesting. Here,
Hmm.
use plastic. Wait, no, plastic's terrible. Use the paper bags. Now paper's still terrible. Use the plastic, but,
Yeah.
but these are recycled plastic. And it's just, can we make up our minds?
Well, and I think you're absolutely correct, and I think a lot of times we have to look at the financial impact of these things. As I mentioned, think about the cell phones, and so you're a cell phone maker. You create this cell phone, but then it creates this residual line of business where now these case makers, they make the cases for the cell phones, and they don't want you to make the phone exactly the same the next year, because then they won't be able to sell another case. And so it's this ripple effect that happens, and a lot of it is driven by we want to make money, and then that's what the company's perspective is. And then we as consumers, we love this convenience, and we love these new things and stuff like that.
Yep. It makes money for them, and it's new and shiny to us.
Yes, yes.
They're like, ooh,
I know, I
I
know.
have to get the new shiny stuff.
I know, I know, I know.
It's terrible.
I'm watching YouTube and I see the videos and then the new phone is getting ready to come out, and so I'm watching all the videos and it's like the phone's not gonna be out for like 5 months, but I'm watching the videos. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I will use my phone until it's almost unusable.
Yeah.
Almost. My husband, we've had iPhones from the very beginning,
Hmm.
and my husband's he actually took over my old phone, which
Hmm.
is a an iPhone 6 Plus.
Oh. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. They're like talking about 15
Yeah,
now.
I know, I know.
Okay, okay. And he's still on 6 Plus. He's like, he still makes phone calls. I'm
Yeah.
like, true,
Hmm.
true. You are correct. But it doesn't do anything else hardly.
Hmm.
So anyway, he's fine. He's fine.
Hmm.
Okay. So this is cool and scary to me.
Hmm.
This next article. Google Cloud is partnering with the Mayo Clinic
Hmm.
to try and expand generative AI in healthcare. So the cool thing is, and I know Bob has talked to me about this before, that they've done testing with AI in a result or in talking with patients, right?
Hmm.
So they have a chatbot talking with patients, and the chatbots are rated higher in quality of care
Hmm.
and correct diagnoses versus doctors. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, dude. So, I mean, as a teaching tool, that can be really cool. But, and I'm not one of these like, oh, AI's going to take over the world and what,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's programmed by people.
Yes. Hmm.
So my concern is Google and having large corporations involved in my healthcare. And I mean, obviously, large corporations are healthcare.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
Yeah.
But it can. I don't know. I don't know. All the chat. I mean, I will say I've used Chat GPT, and
Mhm.
it can be very helpful. I would
Well,
say.
yeah, I mean, it's a tool,
Hmm.
and it's now. I know it's a very, very, very huge comparison, but like you take a look at a shovel in Chat GPT or a shovel in any of this AI technology, and both of them are tools, and both of them are being used by a person for a certain initiative. So, as you mentioned earlier, it depends on what the person is doing with it. As I was looking at some of the AI stuff, and of course, I talked about the cell phone earlier, and I'm excited about some of the things that they're doing with AI, and I see how some of the bots
Hmm.
have the ability to pass these exams, like the attorney's exams and the doctor exams, and things of that nature. And so you see how they're able to do these things, and I think used properly, it could be beneficial. I think it's going to be just like everything else. We see some good things happening with all this, the things that have come before, and then you see some bad things as well. So I think that's part of the challenge that we have to take a look at. But looking at it from the standpoint of what it can actually do, I like the idea of having that, if it's capable, having that quality of service all the time, unless there's a bug. But to say if there's no bug, and it brings you that same quality of service, because the truth is, doctors are humans just like we are, and they can have good days and they can have bad days. I think to myself, if there was some ailment someone was suffering from, imagine having not just one doctor that you're talking to, but the collective of all of these great doctors who are all specialists in a certain field, able to look at your medical condition.
Right. And that's an excellent point, is you have all of the information that they have loaded for this
Mhm.
AI to learn from. And as long as the people who are creating or putting the information, the data sets together for the AI to learn from, get good data,
Mhm.
then yeah, the AI in and of itself is going to do amazing things.
Mhm.
I just tend to be a little more skeptical of the people behind
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
Because I mean, the AI is the AI. It's a
mhm.
computer.
Mhm.
It is neither good nor bad. It just is.
Mhm.
Right. It's the intentions and the usage of the people behind it
Mhm.
that's my biggest concern. And I know that's a concern of a lot of people. And I've been seeing a lot of talk about there needs to be regulation on
Mhm.
AI. There needs to be regulation on in my opinion, it's not always everybody's opinion, I understand. In my opinion, there needs to be regulation on the people.
Mhm.
But but using it as a tool, um yeah, it's super helpful. It can be super helpful.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you mentioned earlier about the big corporations. You're going to see, much like many of our technology devices and um, things that are created, they've been driven by organizations that have the financial means to bring the technology or the device to the mainstream. And so definitely that is a challenge, because if the AI is just basically collecting this body of data, then what body of data is it collecting? Is it limited to a certain, or is it skewed in a certain way? And so that's the thing that we have to be concerned with. And what happens too is, it's important that we have, you know, you know, more, we raise the awareness of the patient, where the patient is willing to go get a second opinion, and hopefully they're able to go to multiple doctors, and maybe it will start out that way at first, where you're still going to a physical doctor, and then also you can go to Dr. AI, right? And and be able to compare and contrast. I think about, with the similar to, I know we were talking about healthcare, but I think about the self-driving automobiles and
Mhm.
how they're testing some of those vehicles in certain cities right now. And yeah, they're hitting bumps in the road, but it's unlike any other. It's not like it's unlike any other technology that came out. There's tons of airline disasters that happen because the people who built it did not know this would happen, and certain things happened. Then they said, okay, oh well, let's not do that anymore.
Exactly. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. And we are at the start of
Hmm.
this, which is great. So we're going
Yes.
to wrap this up. I know
Okay.
you have some things you want to talk about as far as the library is concerned. So
Yes.
please go right ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, it was a couple of programs I wanted to mention today, and they center around the celebration of Juneteenth. Here at the main library here at downtown Fort Lauderdale, we have a couple of programs that's taking place on June 17th. That is a Saturday. I think those links will be going up in the chat. At 11 a.m., we are going to have an African drumming, dancing, and story time for the entire family. So we're asking you to come out at 11 a.m. at the main library downtown Fort Lauderdale on Saturday, June 17th. And after that, at 1 p.m., we're going to have a Juneteenth musical celebration, once again for the entire family, starting at 1 p.m. on Saturday, June 17th. And one of the unique things we're doing, we're going to have food for you to come out. And so we just want you to come out to celebrate with us, have something to eat, bring the entire family out.
Awesome. That is going to be a wonderful program. One of my staff is working on that, as obviously, as you know. So I'm super excited for this. I know she's very excited for it as
Mhm.
well. So we definitely look forward. Please, everybody, come down to the main library, 100 South Andrews Avenue. That's on Andrews and Broward Boulevard in downtown Fort Lauderdale on Saturday, June 17th, starting at 11.
Yes.
So it's going to be wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. It was
Very
fantastic
welcome.
having you today.
Thank you.
I'm
Same
so
here.
glad you could join us. And yeah, so thank you, everybody. And I'll see you next week because Bob's still going to be on vacation. So
All right.
have a good time, everybody.
All
See
right.
you
Take care.
later.
Okay,
Thanks,
bye-bye.
Michael. Bye.